are we live streaming now?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to come off a video and I want to welcome everyone for coming. We're getting a few people checked in, but thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us. Okay, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes, folks. We've got we're checking in folks from in our waiting room, making sure everyone is credentialed, and we just really appreciate you joining us. We have a great agenda for tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that into our chat.
Can I ask if the credentialing team would be comfortable allowing everybody in so that we could start, and then could they rename once people are in?
That's fine.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm good to admit all?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Melissa, thank you.
Yep, that should be everybody in here, Carrie.
Okay, great. And let's see, we can remove our meeting. Will start shortly. Great. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I am going to, first of all, I want to say welcome. I know folks are still going to be coming in. We're going to get everyone checked in as quickly as we can. It is just a few minutes after 6, and it has been quite the weather week. I know it's been freezing and a little bit of snow, and last week was quite interesting, but it is 6:33. And I'm looking at our waiting room, and we're going to let our credentialing folks do what they do. But I just want to welcome everyone and have this. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order so we can get on with our night. I also would love to now move to our agenda, and I'm going to make sure that we have our agenda in the chat. So we're going to move to our land acknowledgement. And I'm inviting the LD chair of the 46th, Hunter Brown. If we can spotlight Hunter, and he will give our land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Niti Yagali Du, Hunter Brown, Sha'izi Kalan, Denina, Eshlan Shida, Katnu, Shugu, Shakoya, Kailanda. Hello, my name is Hunter Brown. I'm Denina. My village is in Kenai, and I'm an enrolled member of the Kenaiti tribe. On behalf of the King County Democrats, I acknowledge the land on which we stand today as the traditional home of the Coast Salish and Duwamish tribes, and the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, Snoqualmie, and Muckleshoot nations. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We recognize their invaluable contributions to our state, history, economy, and culture. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and trespasses and bring about a future that includes their voices, people, and stories to form a more just and equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hunter. We appreciate you. Next, on our agenda, I would like to make sure that everyone, a refresher on Robert's Rules of Order. Per our bylaws, we are on the most current version, which is the 12th edition. And there are a few changes. We will do a little bit more on our parliamentarian rules. And also, one of the changes I just want to make that you will be hearing from our parliamentarian on, and as you go forward with the 12th edition, it included virtual meeting rules. And one of the changes that was surprising to me when I went through a recent training was that there is no longer a point of information. It is now request for question. This is definitely, I just want to put this out there because we follow Robert's Rules of Order, and that is how we run our meetings. We want this to be accessible and for each person to understand how we interact in our meetings, how we keep them on track, the purpose for them, and just be on the lookout for everyone in this meeting that we will be sending out a cheat sheet, a 12th edition. And for those folks, especially chairs, we've also talked to that we really want to make sure that we are training appropriately within meetings. I know when I first came to an LD meeting, it was a new concept to me. So as your chair, I want this meeting to be run with every voice to be heard, with everyone to have their voice. And as we move through what that means, be sure that look for trainings as we have them appropriately. So thank you guys so much. Next, what I did put into our call to meeting is a consent agenda. And what that means is it is a tool for really making meetings run efficient. We have a really packed agenda, and the two things within our consent agenda are to adopt our agenda and also to approve our January minutes. Both of those are put out in our call to meeting. And I will now ask if there are any objections to adopting our agenda for tonight and to approving our January minutes. Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Last call. Are there any objections? And hearing none, we have adopted our January minutes and also our agenda for tonight. So thank you, everyone. I'm very excited. I also want to give you, next on our agenda is my chair's report. So what that means is that we will, each meeting, I will make sure that you guys know, what is KCDCC doing? What does it look like? And I just want to say welcome to what is now our second meeting with your new leadership team. And we are getting introduced to all of you. We are accessible. We want to make sure you have all of our contact information. And one of the biggest focuses that we've had in this past month has been getting our committees up and running. You will hear from two of our committees tonight, probably the two committees that you want to hear most from, which is our endorsement committee and our PCO committee later in our agenda. We also will put in the chat right now, or before I end up talking, a volunteer sign up form. So all of you who are King County Central Committee representatives going back to your legislative districts, we really want your involvement. We would love for you to join a committee. We would love for your voice to be represented in everything we do at the county. So please hit this link and join a committee. It is a great way to meet like-minded people. I will tell you from my own personal perspective, in 2021, I hit this link and I wanted to make sure that I was a part of King County, and I joined a committee and I found amazing friends that it was just an amazing camaraderie, and I was able to do what gave me purpose and joy. So I also just really want to say, please join us. We would love to have community volunteers, and also it's really great to get to know you in different parts of King County. Our biggest emphasis recently has been on our endorsement committee, which is made up of a large team of LD members from across the county. And I am so grateful to this team who have been working so hard. We've asked a lot. We've got 311 seats up for election this year. And I will say our endorsement process is a tedious one for candidates and the committee members alike, and everyone is doing it with grace. And I just appreciate all of your work. And I will ask each of you to continue to give great feedback, to look over the draft, but to give grace and really patience, but make sure your voice is heard. We really appreciate everybody here. We are all here for common cause. The other really fun thing is we've also been working with our DEI committee. They are working to make sure that we're fully supported at Seattle Pride and at various community events happening around Juneteenth. And our outreach committee is focused on engaging our community partners. Our candidate recruitment and support committee is also getting up to speed, gathering jurisdiction information from King County elections, and also formulating plans with all of the legislative districts with how can we add value and collaboration to make sure that there is not one seat in King County that does not have a Democratic running. This is super important. We know that the Republicans are just gathering people off the street and making them run for office, whether qualified or not. We want to make sure that we have an eye towards governance, that we are looking to have Democrats run, that their passion, they find their purpose and joy, and that we are reaching out to our own community groups, our own neighbors and friends to say, have you thought about running for office? We've also seen, I've seen a lot of you virtually. Either I've attended one of your legislative district meetings or your executive board meeting. And last Monday, I just want to give an update that we had our first all county chairs meeting, so that we are really collaborating and teaming. We have 11 new legislative district chairs. We also, I'm going to welcome, and I hope Malik is here, a new King County Young Democrat leader, our new chair. And Malik, if you can come off camera, I'm calling you on the spot because I would love for you to give a wave. There you are. Thank you. We appreciate you and we appreciate your team. Welcome. And our next chairs meeting, you will be a part of that. So thank you so much for all your feedback and all that you do. Moving next to our agenda, I want to give a few election-related updates. The King County Conservation District saw a record turnout with 13,843 votes cast. And this is up from the previous record of last year of 10,072 votes. So I just want to see there is a ton of work to do, but congratulations to everyone for getting out the vote, for letting your precincts know, letting your legislators, your neighbors, your friends know how important the King Conservation District is and the election. Our turnout rate, although it was 1.05 in King County. So with that statistic, we've got a lot of work to do, and we will continue to advocate for making sure that it is on the ballot. And we will be sending a lot of information to all of you for how to advocate for this election. It is super important, and it is a part of what we do. The Enumclaw, as you know, the Enumclaw School District levy vote in South King County did not pass. Of the 21,352 registered voters in that district, we had a turnout of 44.56%, with more than 75% of the voters turning out against the levy. There's much work to be done at the education level, and we really hold the importance of fully funding school districts and education. In happier news, which I hope everyone can give a huge wave to, is that the social housing bill that we supported, officially known as I-135, on the ballot 2 weeks ago in Seattle passed with 57.9% of voters in favor of supporting social housing. This voter turnout in Seattle this February was 33.17%, with 159,000 voters participating. And I'm going to put a graphic. I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you a graphic, which I hope all of you had a chance to see. And I am having trouble pulling that up. 1 second. Of course, technology. This is exactly what I get. 1 second. I will put the graphic, I promise, in chat because it's really great. It just shows the where voters came from and where we've got work to do. And so it's really exciting. A little awkward that it didn't come up, but I promise you, I will put that in chat. And I will now move. I will turn it over to Jeremy Barksdale, our first vice chair. He's going to talk next on our agenda around our special April elections. So Jeremy.
All right. Thanks, Carrie. Hey, everybody. Just want to mention that ballots will be coming out on April 5th for an election date of April 25th for the Crisis Care Centers levy. We're going to hear a little bit more about that from a special guest in a little bit, but it's part of the alternative crisis response approach. So I'll pass it over to Carrie to introduce our special guest.
And with that, on our agenda, we have King County Executive Dow Constantine, who will be sharing with us about the April special election levy. And he needs no introduction because he's amazing. And I will now turn it over to Executive Dow Constantine to address our members. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to address King County Democrats on this tremendously important issue. As Jeremy said, the Crisis Care Centers levy is on the April 25th ballot. And the point of this is really to begin to fill the gap in behavioral health care, addiction care, mental health care in our community. This historically is a state and federal responsibility. There's been a long-term disinvestment, and despite some efforts here and there, we are seeing a pronounced lack of care for those who are struggling with behavioral health challenges in our communities. And this shows up in a lot of different ways in our jails and in the court backlog. It shows up in the hospital emergency room overcrowding. It shows up in the streets, and no one can have missed that. And it also shows up in quiet suffering that's happening in every community, rich and poor, all across this county. The Crisis Care Centers levy would create 5 crisis care centers, walk-in clinics. There's no place you can walk into in King County to refer yourself, be brought by a family member or a social worker to receive immediate care. That is obviously completely unacceptable. Those would be distributed geographically around the county. One of them would be exclusively for youth, young people. We'd also stabilize and rebuild the supply of long-term residential treatment beds. So these are the community facilities that were intended to replace the large state hospitals as they began to close. There were never enough of them. And these facilities, now some 40 years old, are closing at an alarming rate because of deferred maintenance. We have to have those beds. And finally, it would rebuild the workforce. And this is a story that I'm sure you can all imagine. The behavioral health workers are underpaid. It is a very tough job. They work very hard, and it's difficult to support yourself in a high-priced region like this on the wages that they receive. So we would support the compensation for those workers. We would support apprenticeships and training for workers, and rebuild really the workforce that we need, because we need people to treat people. The cost of this measure is $10 per month, $10 for the owner of the median priced $800,000 home in King County. It is created and supported by caregivers, clearly, but also by our cities, by labor unions, led by SEIU 1199, represents many of those behavioral health workers, but many other unions as well, by businesses, by advocacy groups, and it was approved unanimously by the King County Council. It was endorsed just a couple weeks ago by the 34th District Democrats, and others are taking it up in this endorsement cycle. And I would be very grateful for the endorsement of the King County Democrats, and more than that, for the help of this organization in getting the word out and helping the public understand that there is this spring ballot, and that it is absolutely critical for us to provide a humane response for those who are struggling with behavioral health challenges. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you a question that I did see?
Yes.
One question. We have a member that this is very near and dear to their heart. And the question is, how does this work with HB 1477988 hotline and connection to care? Will beds
So,
care be
yeah.
hooked into the system under this development?
Yes, the telephone system 988 is very important, and we need to have the services to back it up. If somebody calls in crisis, if they need help, we do not right now have the help available in a lot of cases. In crisis, people are asked now to wait weeks, if not months, for assistance. And this is not a King County problem. This is not a Washington State problem. This is an American problem. It is a disgrace. So this would provide more of the capacity we need to help people in crisis. I actually have just agreed to serve as co-chair of a national commission for the counties on mental health and well-being, and had an opportunity to meet at length with the Surgeon General about this challenge, as well as with the President. They're very much on board and are going to be advancing a national agenda, but we cannot afford to wait here. For those struggling, whether they're housed or unhoused, whether they're involved in the criminal legal system, we have to provide this help for them to be able to reclaim their lives, reclaim their dignity, and be able to move forward again. So I'm really grateful to everyone who's pitching in from many different angles. The thing that King County Democrats can do is to really get out there in person and connect with our fellow Democrats as well as others, and let them know how important this is.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate this. We appreciate the effort it takes. And I also will, I will echo our executive, and this is really important. It's important to our county. It is important that we talk to our neighbors and friends, that we are telling the story of really how can we get our community and our members, maybe some who are not seeing the appropriate help. And I do see, Judy, I see your hand raised. One of the things that we will do, Dow, I will work with your team, and we will make sure that we also get all of this information out to all of our members as well. So for folks who are wondering, will you get follow-up information? The answer is yes. Thank you very much. And Judy, real quick, did you have a quick question?
Yes, Dal said that these people make very little money, and that we would provide basically this would provide additional compensation for them. And I'm wondering if you can be more specific. Would this be lower cost housing? What would it be? I can't hear you. You're muted, Dal.
Judy, I'm going to go ahead.
There
I'm
we
going to
go.
put you back on mute, and thank you. And
Am I unmuted now?
you are unmuted. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So there will be an implementation plan that will get more specific about the type of help that will be provided, and the type of help will obviously depend on the need in a particular community. There's wages. There's also opportunities for helping with benefits or with ancillary but critical issues like housing. We have been doing the best work we can within our current resources to support behavioral health nonprofit organizations. They mostly get compensated through, for example, Medicaid and other federal government benefits, but there has been no money to make up for the gross difference in cost of living in our region versus other places, nor has there been money for them to reinvest in the facilities that were built by the state many decades ago and are now at the end of their useful life. So this is intended to deal with both of those challenges. And I have to say that as I've called around, as I've talked to folks about this measure, I have yet to speak to a person who does not have a personal story about themselves, about their family, about friends. This is an epidemic that, if it were a physical illness, would have received the full and complete attention of the United States government. But somehow we discount mental health and addiction. Here in King County, we're seeking to elevate it, and by doing so, set an example for the rest of the state.
Thank you very much. Before we let you go, I will, if you're okay, can we take one more question and then we will move on with our agenda, which does anyone have another question? If you could use your raised hand for Dow. Mark Boswell, I will let you ask our one question. Thank you.
Now I'm unmuted. Dow, this an awful lot of this problem, and I realize that there's multiple factors in the problem that we're dealing with, but at the heart of it, it goes back to Ronald Reagan and neoliberalism, and basically the wealthy are not paying their fair share, and either are the mega corporations. Is that something your county organization is going to deal with, start talking about and get working in the party?
Yeah, I have been very clear for a very long time about wanting the state to fix its own tax system so that people are at a minimum paying according to their means, their ability to pay. We would not be having to go to the ballot and ask the voters to approve a property tax every 3 months if we had a rational tax system in this state. But the fact is, yes, Jack Kennedy created and passed the Community Mental Health Act back in 1963, the last piece of legislation he signed before he was assassinated. He did that in honor of his sister, who had spent her entire adult life in institutions. And the idea was the federal government was going to fund the creation of these much more humane, community-based facilities. Without his leadership, that drifted. Then Ronald Reagan block granted the remainder of the funding, and federal government essentially washed their hands of it and left it to the states. The state of Washington picked up, did a bit, but not nearly enough to fill the gap, and here we are today. You've put your finger really on one of the source of the problem, which is the abdication of responsibility by the government of the United States and the shifting of responsibility to those who are least able to afford it. We have to invest in this now, and we have to continue to demand that the Washington State Legislature create a tax system that is fair, that is sufficient for the needs of the people. And if we were able to do that for this state, with the resources that we have, truly we could have a place where every person would have the opportunity to thrive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you giving us your time to educate us. And I just want to, if we can give Executive Dow Constantine a huge thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Paul Chapman, I see your hand raised.
There we go. Is Dow Constantine still here? It looks like he's left.
Was there a question that you had for him?
Oh yeah, I was just following up on that last question. The wealth tax, which is currently in the legislature, would potentially help with some of these issues. I was just going to ask if he was in support of the wealth tax, but
great.
He's not here.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. With that, we've heard, we are going to hear some more about our community, and with that on our agenda, I will entertain a motion for endorsing the crisis care centers.
Chris Franco, so moved.
Melissa Taylor, second.
The motion has been moved and seconded to endorse the April special election levy, the crisis care centers. And with that, I will open the floor for debate. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? And with Chris, I will turn to you since this is your motion. Would you like to speak in favor?
someone was more familiar with it, happy to pass off the torch to them just personally in support of this, because I think this is a solid use of our funds and we need to do something now.
Thank you very much. Brittany Miles, I see your hand raised.
Hi, yes. I'm in support. I'm the single parent to a child. She's 15 now that has early onset schizophrenia. It has been a challenge to get any type of care that is quality. We've been through the ringer and we were financially at a we were middle class, upper middle class, and going through the process, I've nearly lost everything. And I don't want other people to have to go through this, especially when you have younger children that do have serious mental illness, because it takes a long time to get to that diagnosis, because those are powerful drugs and powerful diagnoses. So I think we should support. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Is there anyone who would speak against the motion to endorse the April levy crisis care centers? And with that, if you raise your hand, I will call on you. Is there anyone who speaks against? Anyone? Mark Boswell, are you speaking against the motion? And you are unmute. Sorry.
More of a cautionary tale. Yes, I'll tell you what the negative is. There's many people who are longtime Democrats who have been very aggressive supporters of everything like this, who are dealing with burnout. And some of them who I know were very close. And so I'm very sympathetic, and we need to be very cautious about how this kind of an approach, which is I also see as necessary, but how it's perceived by the public, because it's a really easy thing for the Republicans to get a hold of and use as a weapon. And when we've got the situation where I have lifelong Democrats I know who are basically saying they're not going to vote for anything like this or anything else that costs them money, because nobody is paying attention to their needs. And so that's getting to be a big feeling in the people I'm talking to. So just a cautionary tale, we need to be aware.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Do we have anyone who will speak in favor of the motion to endorse the April crisis care levies? And Alex, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to speak out in support of it as someone who has a partner who's worked in the mental health care system in King County as a nurse in both Harborview and at Northwest. They are severely overworked, and they deal with burnout because there are too many patients, and it's unfortunate that they don't have enough beds to have the number of people that need the help get it. And the nurses are trying their best to, deal with the problems and get them resolved. But the number of times she's seen patients come into the Harborview Psych ICU and then seeing them back on the streets in the same conditions is too many to count. And so they need help. Our nurses need help, and these patients really, really need the help.
Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking in favor. Do we have anyone who will speak against the endorsement? Do we have anyone who will speak against? Last call. Is there anyone who will speak against? And with that, I will close debate, and we will now move this motion to a vote. And with that, I will bring in our tally committee member who will explain exactly how we will be voting. And let me see, do we have Christina Beverland? Do you want to just give a quick shout out to how we will be voting?
I would actually like to defer to Tara if that's okay.
Absolutely. Tara, who's been a part of our credential and tally committee as we are standing up our new committee. She has been with King County Democrats for a very long time. And Tara, if you could come off mute and just walk folks through so they know who their tally person is, who to look for.
Okay, I'll say it, and then if actually someone else can type the list into the chat, that would be great. The way you're going to vote is you are going to chat to your particular tally member. You can go to the participants window and look for someone whose name is Tally with a bunch of LDs and find your LD that way. We will also post the list in the chat, and that's it. You just chat in Zoom to the person and say, give your vote, levy yes, levy no, levy abstain. If you are abstaining, please let your tally person know you're abstaining so that we know when we can close the vote, because everybody who's going to vote has voted. Are there any other questions? I'll start getting the list in, or just look for
Perfect.
your person.
Great. Thank you so much. So as you look for your person to have your vote, go ahead and use the chat to text them your vote. And we will give that a minute.
Carrie, we could probably move forward with speakers while the vote's being tallied.
That's perfect. I was just going to suggest, I want to introduce Karen. I see you. Before I do, I see your hand raised. Go ahead. Oh, okay, thank you. I would love to introduce our guest speakers. We have some amazing people here tonight who are going to present to us what we've all agreed to is super important to Seattle. And one of the things that I would love to highlight is that we are bringing in education and folks who really who know exactly kind of the questions that we've had and been able to walk us through what this looks like in a really thoughtful way. And with that, I am going to introduce our guest speakers. And starting out with us tonight is Lisa Daugard. She is the co-executive director of policy for the Public Defender Association. And she has been an alumni of the association's public defense era. She joined in 1996. She's grown up in Seattle and has attended the University of Washington. She's been an anti-apartheid activist at Cornell University in the mid-1980s, while occasionally attending class and earning her master's and obtaining her JD from Yale Law School. We also have with us Brandy Flood, who is the Director of Community Justice for Reach Evergreen Treatment Services Seattle. And Brandy is a social worker and the Director of Community Justice at Reach Evergreen Treatment Services, managing lead, reentry, and recovery navigator programs. We also have with us, who will be speaking tonight, is Dominic Davis, who is co-principal of We Deliver Care LLC. She's a co-principal as well as founder and CEO of Community Passageways. He has served his PhD in the streets from the University of Rainier in Henderson. As a youth and young adult, Dominic was a gifted football player, street entrepreneur, and skillful survivor. In time, he decided he needed to ensure he contributed to the community healing, not harm, and resolved to be a positive contributor, mentor, and coach. We've got these amazing speakers who will be presenting to us. And with that, I would like to open it to our guest, Lisa Daugard.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thanks for having us tonight. So, and I'm truly honored to present to you with two genuine geniuses of community-based safety strategies, Brandy and Dom. The three of us work together on the projects that we're going to be talking to you about. Each of our organizations also does other work in this area, but we want to focus on a few examples of concrete strategies by which we can tackle public safety needs and goals in a way that is popular, widely supported, effective, and sustainable. So I'm going to talk to you for just a few minutes about the theory of change of this work. And I do want to start by contrasting it with the issues of crisis response that you were just focused on with the behavioral health ballot measure. Crisis circumstances are obviously very important and need a better response than our community and our society has offered in recent decades. But the problems that we try to tackle are really, and I'm saying these words intentionally in contrast to crisis, they are problems of chronic conditions and issues of crime. I say that because all too often, nearly identical circumstances, when labeled as criminal versus crisis, receive radically different responses. And we are here to, we are here, and our work exists in order to emphasize that much of which is actually, literally violations of law, also stems from unmet human need and also calls for responses that are rooted in community-based care. So the programs that we're going to and the approaches that we're going to be describing to you are very intentionally styled as responses to public order issues, issues of crime, and issues of public safety. Here's kind of the theory of change guiding this work. It is hard to miss, and you all are engaged in politics, so this is really the realm in which public safety drives votes, public safety drives sentiment and feeling, and really in a very profound way, public safety drives resources. The systems that are consistently robustly resourced are systems that purport to deliver security and safety. So rather than attempting to avoid that perennial sustained political truth, what we notice is that it is possible to champion and endorse notions of safety and feelings of security while advancing truly transformational paradigm shifting methods. And that's what we try to do. We try to use really in the United States, pretty radical strategies of community-based care, meeting people where they're at, low barrier approaches, but to do so in a way that generates really difficult to dismiss public safety benefits, and in so doing, creating a very broad and sustainable political base and public foundation of support to sustain this work and also to generate the resources to do it right. So the three examples that we wanted to share with you tonight, first, our LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, which in recent years has also been renamed Let Everyone Advance with Dignity, to acknowledge the fact that the entry point into LEAD services does not necessarily involve contact with police. Brandy's going to describe LEAD, and this is, in its classic sense, a way in which somebody who is exposed to enforcement and punitive systems can be instead connected to community-based care, and that can be the the official public response to that behavior. Dawn's going to describe the Third Avenue project. That's the newest of these three models. It is just recently launched in the last 3 months, focused on Upper Third Avenue in downtown Seattle and the complex interlinked issues of profound mental illness, drug use, drug sales, sale of stolen property, and people living unsheltered in that area. And then I'm going to wrap up talking about just care and our response to encampments and related issues over the last several years. Randy.
Thanks, Lisa. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So the LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, Lisa talked about the new name for that, but essentially we work with the most vulnerable people in the city, and we believe if we're bringing people robust services to engage, we can have sustainable outcomes for their lives. And so these are people who are, due to extreme poverty, behavioral health, homelessness, struggling with addiction, are engaged in low-level crimes. And instead of, we know we can't arrest away the problem, we provide them with long-term intensive case management. And so that's the gist of it. And Lisa had the perfect idea of putting together unlikely partners to do this work, because we see the impacts of, we feel the impacts of this population on our public safety and on our communities. And so one of the things we use is intensive case management, harm reduction, treatment, mental health, and legal system coordination to help people figure out their lives in a way where we can improve their circumstances and their current social situation. Next slide. So one of the things this year, LEAD's been around since 2011, and although we've always done long-term intensive case management, there's always been kind of ways where we've had to come in and do some high impact stuff, because the great thing about LEAD is it's very flexible. It's not just confined to one way of doing it. We go in there, we listen to all the partners, all the community partners, what's going on with clients, and we're able to kind of shift and move as needed for the problem that's happening. And so this year, we really want to focus on some of those high impact areas. Right now, LEAD covers from Burien all the way to Aurora, which is great, but with all the extreme poverty happening and substance use and gun violence and things, there's some neighborhoods where it's really high impact, where there's a lot of public safety issues happening. So how can we partner with community members in that neighborhood, law enforcement, businesses, and the people experiencing homelessness to make some better outcomes for those folks? So this year especially, we're looking at working in specific areas around the city. You could go next slide. And like Lisa said, law enforcement is not the only way that you can be referred to the program. We have a community referral resources. These are a lot of our community referral folks that are making referrals into the program. So we take them from these folks, businesses, things of that nature that see people in the neighborhood that are, causing a little havoc, but they also can tell they need some services. And so this is how people come through the program in several different ways, whatever makes sense to get people that special service. Next slide. And so this year we've had some great outcomes, LEAD care outcomes. In 2022, out of our over 700 clients, we had over 150 of them engaged in mental health services, over 200 getting substance use support, over 140 that were moved into permanent housing, and over 300 that were engaged in legal coordination. At least 62% of the clients we serve are people of color. And it's very serious that happens, because those are the people who are falling through the cracks in terms of being connected to services. That was great to hear about your 5 crisis clinics that we want to happen, because we are the people who will be bringing those folks to those crisis clinics. Like Lisa said, we don't like to say the word crisis, but oftentimes our people, even though there's chronic, there is many crisis situations, and our case managers and project managers are the ones who are intervening and going wherever they need to go to meet the needs of these folks. And so our services, the biggest thing I forgot to say, that if they're not office-based, they're outreach-based. We go to where the folks are. We go to where business owners are, politicians, wherever we need to go to work in partnership with folks to really have public safety in all of our communities for everybody. I'll leave it at that. Next slide. And these right here, this last slide is just, this is our think tank right here. And so there's Tara Moss, who's the co-director for PDA. There's myself. There's Devin Mikett, who is my program supervisor and program manager for LEAD at REACH. And then, of course, you just met Lisa Dugard, and Tara Dearborn is the lead project director for PDA. And so we all work in collaboration to make this happen.
Thank you.
Hello. I don't see my picture, my screen. Okay. Anyway, hi, I'm Dominic Davis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WDC. We Deliver Care. We are the boots on the ground for the Third Avenue Project. This is what we do. We literally are out there every day, 7 days a week, 16-hour days, 2 shifts. We're called to come into this project because the people that we target to hire are people from the communities that are the people that we serve are from. So literally the people that we tap the shoulders of are people that have been through the criminal justice system, that have experienced homelessness, that have experienced mental health issues, or that have families or friends or have relationships with people that have been through those systems. We bring those people in, we get them trained up, we put them back into the community, and they go out and they spend time building relationships with people. They go out and make sure that that community's safe. That we're a safety de-escalation team. So when we step into that space, we have to start off by building relationships and embedding ourselves into that community. And that's what we've been spending so much time doing, so many hours a day doing, being part of that community, all the way down to the point we know everybody in the Third Avenue corridor at this point. We have become part of that community. The people in that community come to us now. We don't even have to do much outreach. As soon as we hit the block, they know we're out there every day, and they know that they can come get some water, get a snack, get some socks, some sweats, whatever, and also get their name put into a referral database to be up for case management, housing, any kind of mental health assistance, whatever it is that we can get them connected to with our partner organizations in this big collaboration that we have. Because it takes a big team to be able to answer to a problem that's been a problem for so many years that we have not been able to address. Government hasn't been able to address. Law enforcement hasn't been able to address. Now we're taking a different angle with community addressing these issues. So offering support, offering a good hand, being able to step into spaces where people are getting ready to get violent with each other, fights, disagreements, and we just step into that space, and automatically it's been crazy to see how instantly people calm down and how we are able to relate and communicate with these people that we're serving and the participants that we're serving to calm situations down so fast that sometimes even security guards downtown or police officers downtown are asking us, how are you guys able to do that? Sometimes we just show up and things calm down. It's because we're out there shaking hands, giving people a hug, talking to people and making sure that people know we're out there to build relationship and provide for them. So it's just a whole different kind of model and a different kind of approach. I'm super excited about the way things been moving forward. We've been able to have some really good results come out of this. We've referred hundreds of people. I mean, it's been to the point where we're referring so many people into the system that I think we're kind of overwhelming the system at this point. And so it's been really a blessing to see how people are coming to us, asking us, hey, can you put us in this referral system? But sometimes we don't even have to outreach to them. They're asking us, can you put us in this system? It's been dope. So far, we've been able to save over 20 people that have OD on the streets on Third Avenue. We have administered Narcan to people that are ODing, and we've been able to save close to 20 lives, or even more at this point. We saved 5 lives in one day the other day, 3 lives in an hour. 3 people were ODing in 1 hour, and my team was able to administer Narcan and save their lives. So, I mean, literally, we're doing life-saving work. It's incredible to see our teams out there feeling so honored and so blessed to be able to be in the position to be able to serve people like this. All the way to just handing somebody a package of beef jerky or some socks, all the way to people are seeing us saving their friends' lives and their friends coming back from being on the verge of dying, right? And then we get to be looked at as people that are down there actually doing life-saving work. So people are coming up to us, God bless you, we love you guys. Like, it's incredible. And at the same time, we've been building out this employment process to get people jobs. So we've been navigating, working with, talking to, meeting with different employers that are saying, I'll open my door for some of these participants in your Third Avenue project to give them some opportunity for jobs. And we're saying, hey, you might not be able to pass they might not be able to pass a background check, and they might not be able to pass a UA. Are you guys still open to giving them a chance? We'll do some lightweight case management and some job supports and come and check on them and make sure that everything's okay. But if you're able to give them a chance and willing to lighten up some of your restrictions, let's get them locked in. So those are the conversations we're having right now. And we're compiling a list of people that are more high functioning and more closer to being job ready than others. But we want to get to a process where we can get people trained up and job ready to get them plugged into jobs who aren't close to being job ready yet. So we're compiling a list of people that are high level that we're going to start plugging into job opportunities. And I'm just excited. Things are moving forward. At this point, what we need at this point is we need more shelters, like more places for beds, more emergency instantaneous, like, hey, look, these people are coming up to us saying, I need shelter. I'm open for help now. We want to be able to do that right away. So we need to be able to have our own facilities to operate out of and not have to rely so much on other entities, right? And we're trying to get to that point. Our partners have been more than incredible and have been able to supply most of the things that we need. But it's time. We've been all talking and having conversations with each other, and we're saying, hey, we need more. All of us, all organizations, we're all saying together with one unified voice, we need more. We need to be able to do more, and we need to be able to do it fast. So we're putting the work in. We're making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Lisa.
So moving on to co-lead in the Just Care model, I want to bridge from something that Tom just said about people, coming very readily to offers of help. When we started the Just Care model, which is built around our co-lead program, which is an extension of LEAD, the program that Brandy described for the pandemic in 2020. At that time, there was a lot of discussion about whether people living unsheltered in King County included a lot of folks who were quote unquote service resistant. So there was this concept that, services are offered, but people say no and decline help. And then we have no choice as public officials but to disperse people in sweeps or use enforcement measures. We set out to test what would happen if we actually offered a quality of care that people that was higher level, offered non-congregate shelter. We took advantage of the fact that hotels were open and available during the pandemic, and there were COVID relief funds that could support care teams in those hotels. And what we found, we can move on to the next slide. Actually, let's do one more. I'm gonna sort of speed through the co-lead piece. What we found was that virtually no one in these high impact, high barrier encampment sites that we worked at in Pioneer Square, the Chinatown International District, and the downtown core declined the offer to come inside to really decent conditions with good quality support, where we were willing to meet people with full understanding of their circumstances and work with them as they were. We have colleagues in Honolulu who do harm reduction work who talk about how there are very few service resistant people, but there are very many people resistant services. So we set out with Just Care to model the opposite. You can see that the population that we were focused on is at the intersection of interlocked problems: chronic homelessness, people who are exposed to the criminal legal system, have lots of criminal system history, people who have substance use disorder, are actively using drugs, and people with other kinds of mental illness. And this is that Venn diagram intersection is the majority of folks encountered out in the encampments that we were working in from 2020 to 2022. We can move to the next slide. The map on the right hand of this slide shows the 14 encampments that we responded to between fall 2020 and February of 2022 in the 3 neighborhoods that I called out. You can see that we worked with more than 500 people, fully resolved each of these 14 encampments in the same way that when there's an encampment sweep, it looks like something happened. The sites that we worked at were fully resolved, including, all the litter was picked up. So it presented as a complete resolution of the public order and public safety problems, but the manner in which that was achieved was wholly different from a sweep or a dispersal. Every person who lived in that location had accepted another plan voluntarily, had been in charge of their own departure, had packed up the things that they wanted to leave, including their cats and their dogs, and special property had had time to help organize the departure from the encampment and had helped others. So people were leaving as full participants and co-organizing the departure. You can see that nearly 70% of the people who were offered and accepted these temporary lodging offers were BIPOC. We did this work as explicitly part of a public safety strategy that neighborhoods were asking for. So it wasn't just human services, it was human services in aid of neighborhoods' self-defined public safety and public order needs. And move to the next slide. As I said earlier, the kinds of issues and problems that the folks living in these encampments confronted were profound, are profound. People were overwhelmingly chronically homeless. You can see, nearly 40% had been homeless for more than 4 years. Almost everybody had been homeless for more than 1 year. And the kinds of issues that folks encountered, over 70% dealing with housing needs, substance use needs, mental health needs, trauma history, ongoing legal system issues, lack of public benefits, lack of identification. The barriers that folks are confronting are enormous, and people need a substantial amount of help to even begin to start laying out a road of recovery and stabilization. And that's what the Just Care and co-lead support teams provide. We can move on to the next slide. And actually, we'll wrap up. So in terms of impact, one of the most important demonstrations that co-lead and Just Care have been able to make is that with this kind of support and these kinds of lodging options, folks can and do really well. This study that is linked here has just come out of a research team at the University of Washington, finding that fully 70% of the people that we worked with after we gained access to permanent housing options in the winter and spring of 2022 have moved on to permanent housing. So this is a population, while facing very high barriers, that is fully able to be permanently housed, stabilized, and supported if we offer the kind of care that meets folks where they're at. So if you have a minute for questions, we're all happy to take any, but what we really wanted to leave you with is this couple minutes of video sort of summing up the case for public safety achieved using these transformational methods. And I do want to thank our colleague Faye Lopez-Getke, who has been operating the slides behind the scenes.
Working with a community where many members
Oops, Faye, I'm not sure if you know that we're paused.
may be very skeptical about this particular intervention. and the light bulb goes on and they recognize, oh, we should have respect for our neighbors that don't live in homes. I start to see the glimmer of compassion and also understanding that this may take a little while, but then I also see the investment in the process. That's when I start to feel like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
I was impacted by a crime, which was really scary. I was asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said no. And so I really kind of had to make some phone calls to the victim assistance unit and some other places and said, you know, I really want him to be in the LEAD program. I don't want to press charges because I don't think that that's the best path forward. And for me, like, to heal from the experience that happened to me, the best thing that I could do was to try and make something better come out of it.
I think it's possible to also change minds for people around why a harm reduction approach is better, why meeting a person where they're at and being completely client-centered with a centered in on respect and dignity is the way to go, no matter how long it takes. It's a slower process, but it's a necessary process.
I think the promise of LEAD is that they can break people out of recurrent cycles of crisis and move them towards more beneficial cycles of employment, stabilization, and mental health care.
So if it's under the bridge, if it's at a restaurant, or if it's dealing with law enforcement, we're coming to you. It's not about what you need to do to come to my office. You know, there's a lot of barriers that get in the way of them coming to us. So we go out and meet clients where they're at, and if it's not the day, great, we'll come back and try. And it's these little steps that build change over time. It's not getting everything done in one day, but building rapport and slowly getting them to whatever their goals are.
Now we have everybody's ear. Now the people in power, their backs are against the wall and they don't know what to do. And so this is the time we've all been waiting for. As social workers, community organizers, activists, we've been waiting for this moment where they're wide open. And so now it's time for us to tell them what we want to see.
Thank you. That is so impactful. It's really amazing. And I know we have a little bit of time, but are you, Lisa, are you okay if do you want to add some more to the program, or are you okay if we open it up for some questions and answers?
Oh yeah, we were hoping to leave a little bit of time for Q&A, and that was the end of our formal planned remarks.
Oh,
so
thank you
have
so
at
much.
it. Yep.
So what I would like to do is, for folks, could you use your raised hand and I will call on you, and we will have a great discussion. So Melissa Taylor, Carmen Rivera, and then we've got Brittany Miles. So Melissa.
Yeah, I remember during the budget process last year, Lee said that some of your funding, I think it was a $5 million gap, I was trying to Google in the background, was not covered. Has that been restored, and how can we help?
Well, bless you for asking that question. That was one of the more interesting experiences we've had. For once, I do want to say that the Harrell administration has been very supportive of this style of work. And indeed, the Third Avenue Project only was able to launch because they did commit funds for a year for WDC DUM's organization to mobilize new teams out in that sector. And I do think that they intended to support LEAD, co-lead, Just Care, but there was just honestly just like a math glitch, and a few $1 million was mislaid along the way. So I want to note that this is the problem when demonstration projects start. You know, there's not a lot of money involved, and so a little bit of misfiring here and there on how much is something going to cost is not a big deal, right, to rectify. When you start trying to scale these public safety systems to achieve similar scope to what courts do and what, you know, police departments do and what jails do, now you're talking serious money. And while we have scaled, we're of course nowhere near the kinds of resources that those systems have. But small miscalculations about what something's going to cost amount to the loss of, dozens of people's jobs, the shutdown of facilities. So anyway, long story short, it gets more anxiety producing as we begin to start really taking seriously scaling. Here's one of my favorite lines is that, or observations, not a line, but a truth, that the main thing the criminal legal system has going for it is that it is a system. It's actually, people don't love sending people to jail. People don't love punishment, but it is a thing that is always there. Theoretically, the jail is always open. The police can always come. Admittedly, in recent years, that's sometimes been honored in the breach, but our stuff is not a system, and it's so far from a system that even when in the imagination, people are like, yeah, I would love to have that, but in the absence of that, I have to go for the other thing. So as we begin to approach what even at a micro level starts to look like a system, gaps and funding gaps become catastrophic. So anyway, we did lurch toward a sort of temporary plug for this gap that was opened up during the city budget process with a one-time congressionally directed spending allocation from Senator Murray, which I really want to call out and appreciate, and from Representative Smith for LEAD. Senator Murray funded Just Care, and Representative Smith funded LEAD. So these are genuine Band-Aids getting us partway through the year. And then our hope is that the Regional Homelessness Authority, using some state funding coming through the current session, will bridge the rest of the year with Just Care. But all of this is a crazy way to try to run a serious effort to tackle some of the hardest problems that we have. And we are all pretty change tolerant and uncertainty tolerant, but for you all, as you try to set a landscape in which public officials respond, stable, steady, long-term committed funding sources are absolutely essential if we're going to have alternative public safety strategies, and we're nowhere near that.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for all the work you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much. Carmen Riviera, your question, and then Brittany Miles.
Thank you, Carrie. And it's Rivera. Just Rivera. You said Riviera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It happens all the time. I'm trying to correct people, so I'm trying to be better at that. How can we help? What can we do? Because obviously, everything you guys are doing is incredible and amazing. And where do I give you? How much money do I give you? Where do I donate? What can I when do I volunteer? Where do I sign up? What do you tell me how we can help you, please? Because I want us to support you as best as we possibly can, because I'm just so inspired and re-energized. And my background is actually in juvenile justice. I worked at Echo Glen Children's Center for 5 years, and I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for what y'all are doing. So please just tell me what we can do.
I'm going to say one quick thing and hand it over to my colleagues. And of course, you probably know that Dominique is, in his day job, one of the most visionary youth justice leaders in our region and nationally. But for me personally, it's stop trying to reinvent the wheel, stop trying to chase the shiny new thing, scale what we have. We are fortunate in this community in King County. This is the birthplace of probably, the primary models for community-based public safety in the country. And we don't need to go look under the couch to see if we can figure out, find another one. We need to scale the ones that we have. So just telling leaders, don't brand a new thing, build what we have already started. That would be my wish. Brandy and Dom.
Go ahead, Dom.
Can they be unmuted? Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. We've been asked quite a bit in these last few months since we've been downtown doing this 3rd Avenue project. People want to donate money. People want to volunteer. And because this project is so new and we only been down here 3 months, I can only think of a few things. Literally, WDC is an LLC for-profit. It's not like my nonprofit Community Passageways. It's a for-profit organization. And I would just love to be able to have a small group of people that are interested in volunteering or interested in raising funds or interested in doing some, I don't know, whatever, fill whatever gaps that we need to come down to the office, set up a meeting, come down to the office. Let's talk and figure out what we can do. You know what I mean? We could always use some help feeding the homeless, bringing food down there. You know, we need all kind of different goods to pass out. Like these, we go through a lot of socks and T-shirts and sweatpants and hoodies and things like that. We could pass out hot meals, and of course, WDC could take donations, help us be able to hire more people. At the end of the day, whatever that looks like, we can have a conversation about whatever you're interested in doing. I'm sure we can open up some doors for you guys to walk through. I mean, hell, feed some of the team sometime. They're out there 8 hours a day. Right? They could use some food too. Like just showing that, you know, you got a heart and you want to do something, and just coming down and showing, hey, I care about what you guys are doing. I want to support this, and there's plenty of gaps to fill.
I'll be real quick because I know there's a lot of questions, but the biggest thing you guys could do with the position you have is support policies and funding that build more permanent supported housing buildings, provide more independent housing vouchers for people. We don't have enough housing. And that's the biggest thing to stability is being able to get off those streets and then work on other things. So housing, anything that's related to housing for people who have been chronically homeless, using substances, or behavioral health, and more behavioral health housing, supportive housing that supports people with extreme mental illness.
And Feb put in the chat her contact information. If you want to just send her your name, it'll get included in our brand new PDA website announcement, and that'll tie folks into updates about all of this work.
That's fabulous. And we will send this out to all of our members who can then take it back to the legislative districts in their reports of what we learned today. How do we get involved? What can we do to support? Thank you. Brittany, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I see your hand raised.
Oh yeah, no, it's Brittany. You can call me Britt as well. So I sit on a board for the Sound Radar program that supports the North Sound cities of Bothell, Kenmore, all of that. And we do a lot of work with our local police for non-crisis calls to de-escalate those. And I was wondering, Brandy, do you work at all with Brooke Butner? She's the program manager there, because it would be great that if we could work together, because we're doing the same work, and we get farther together than alone. Not saying that you guys are doing it alone, but I would love to see if you could maybe come to one of our community advisory board meetings to see if we could do some information exchange, and maybe there are other ways that we could work together to kind of further this. So, it's always great to be in these places where we can kind of connect the dots. So just leaving it there. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Judy Gibbs, I see your hand raised.
Yes, one of the things I know you're trying to do is to get these folks into housing, obviously. And one of the problems people have with getting housing in the Seattle area is if they've got a poor credit record. And it's amazing what constitutes a poor credit rating. If they once had a big bill and they managed to get it paid off, overspent their credit cards and they managed to get it paid off, they've still so they don't, or they've got it almost, they've still got a poor credit record. And once they have that poor credit record, how do they correct that? And how do they get housing with a poor credit record?
Well, that was one of the reasons why I said we need more permanent supported housing, housing that is set up to serve people who wouldn't qualify for market rate housing. And so we need more of those type of resources, because you're right, it is hard. LEAD and co-lead have been able to help people work through that and connect them through jobs and things of that nature. But untypical, it takes about 2 years to really house somebody where they could maintain housing. And so, like Dom said, we need some resources that are faster. We need to be able to house people faster than 2 years if we're going to make some high impact changes in our communities around public safety.
Thank you so much. And Paul Chapman, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, this isn't so much a question, but in hearing through some of the policy needs that are needed here, the funding needs that this has, I'm wondering, as we look at creating our King County endorsements questionnaire, if we couldn't include some questions around supporting these efforts for the candidates to ensure that this, what is really a county-wide, region-wide problem, that we ask people who want to be the representatives for us in government, how they feel about actually funding this.
I'm going to jump in, Lisa, really fast. And one of the things is that we did include this, Paul. I think Melissa put it in the chat.
I haven't read the endorsement.
No worries.
Yet.
We just sent it out tonight. So
okay.
Everybody, we just sent this. We sent out our draft tonight. I sent it with our reminder. So Paul, I love that your question.
Awesome.
Yes, we did have that in there. So thank you. Didn't mean to step on your toes, Lisa. I thought I could take that one for you.
No, not at all. That's so great. Over the years, this methodology has been one of the most important ways to consolidate, sort of multiple candidates support for a specific strategy. And I do want to say these are not single organizations. You probably picked up the theme that these are coalition programs, kind of a coalition of the willing. Many of us see that this approach has to be championed by multiple bases within different sectors of our landscape, and so it's not about X organization's program. It is about this model, right? These are frameworks and models for change, and getting everybody running for office to understand that they have to go through that picket fence and say, yes, I support that approach, is probably the most effective thing that y'all can help with.
Thank you so much. Can we take a couple more questions? Are you okay with that? Alex, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm a graduate of Seattle U, and I know that there are a lot of students both there and at UW and Seattle Central who are really passionate about restorative justice and improving the criminal justice system. And I was wondering if you all have had the chance to tap into those students, and maybe I know that Seattle U does capstone projects for seniors, and get students in there working on these projects to sort of, I guess, raise the next generation of people working in this program and doing restorative justice.
I don't know the actual committee that one of my colleagues, Michelle Conley, is our director of integrated care at Reach, but she serves on one of those committees and talks about all of our programs, including LEAD. And so she's tapped in that way to reach students. It's been a long time since I've talked about LEAD at Seattle U, maybe a long time ago. I believe we've done some presentations up there.
Yeah, over time, UW students, Seattle U students have become really a pipeline for, voices building out these models, and quite a few people in our wider family of practitioners are folks who we first met as students. That's been super gratifying, even if one or two of them did become prosecutors. Yeah, so I put a location where our internship opportunities will be. We have a new website debuting later this month, and always a good place to check.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And let's see. I did see a hand raised. Did we have a hand raised? Lillian Hawkins, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for the work you do. I know that it's critical. And I actually work for the court system and have for a while. And I know that there are courts that have community courts, which also offer resource centers. And so I'm curious to know whether or not there could be some collaboration with the resource centers in utilizing those resources, because you talked about not reinventing the wheel, and we have to be really strategic with the resources that are out there. So does this do you guys connect with the community resource centers? I know Seattle Municipal has one. I know Shoreline, I think Auburn, I think Redmond, I think Burien used to have one, but I know that those community resource centers were open to the public, and the point was for them to connect folks to resources. So I'm just curious if there's any collaboration there, opportunity to collaborate there.
Lisa might have a better answer, but I will just say this: I support all programs, but typically for the people that we end up serving, those community courts are kind of set up for people who have the capacity to go to them to get help. They don't come out to the folks. And so typically the people we serve a lot of times don't even have the capacity to manage through community courts, because you kind of already have to have some stability to manage those things. And that's not always the case. So to me, they're really good, I think, for like low income to middle class folks that just kind of tripped along the way and need some, you could dust you off and stand you up. But our folks have been, the train has already run over them. They've been thrown out, spit up, chewed up, and all that kind of stuff, and nobody's coming for them anymore. And so folks like me and Don, we're going to get those people and pull them in. Community courts and mental health courts are not really set up to support those populations.
Yeah, I will say that if you draw a box around, the universe of the court system, there's better and worse ways to run a court system. But one of the things that we know for sure is that making people route through the courts in order to get help is the most expensive known way to get people help, because of just how expensive lawyers are, and judges come equipped with a supporting cast, and many of those are wonderful people. We long ago sort of buried the hatchet with courts around, there's no bad way to offer people good help. However, threading that access to help through portals that are very difficult for people to reach oftentimes, and it is just not the most cost-effective way or the highest volume way to get the help to the folks. So we just try to, people are in court, that's fantastic, and 9 out of 10 times they're not. And so we need to be out where the courts are not. And I think increasingly courts get that. And we make their jobs, when our folks still end up in court, even though they have had some charges diverted, they often have other cases that were not diverted. Our folks are frequently in court. And we are rooting all the way for those judges to be trauma informed and for care and support to be available there. And they are rooting for harm reduction based supports to wrap around folks that are just not going to succeed in court imposed programs otherwise. And so I think that we've learned how to put those pieces together a lot better over the last 10 years.
I want to say thank you so much. I'm going to let each of you say a final word. We've got Dominic, did you want to say a couple things before we close out? But I do want to say to all of our members, we will have all of this information sent out to you. Everything in chat, we will capture. We want this to be a partnership, a dialogue, both education, to advocate, to activate. This is our community. This is where we live. This is our future. And I just really want to say I appreciate Lisa. I appreciate you, Brandy, and Dominic. Thank you so much. And I will let you say a couple words before we close out.
I was just gonna say, I was trying to get off mute, but Seattle U, the question about Seattle U, we work with the Murdoch Fellowship. I mean the Calhoun Fellowship out of the law school at Seattle U every year. A group of young people come and work with Community Passageways, my other organization. I do want to say, advocate for us. If you guys were able to use your power as a democratic organization and group to advocate for us to get, like Brandy was saying, for us to be able to get a facilities downtown. So the mayor gave his speech and said that he wants to repurpose buildings downtown. We need to be at the front of that list, at the top of that list. We need to have as much or as many people pushing for us to be able to be at the top of that list for this downtown project, for us to be able to have facilities downtown. So when they start repurposing those buildings, our name should be at the top of the list. So I hope you guys can come together and use your unified voice and create a unified front and pull some other people with you and say, hey, this is what you guys need to do for these people.
Thank you so much.
I'll be quick, so because Lisa will close it out pretty well, but you guys just have everybody's ear. So let's make sure it's public safety for all, and we don't criminalize people who have mental illness. We don't criminalize people who use drugs, and we don't criminalize people who are unhoused. And right now, the public safety conversation is going too far right. We have to have compassion for people. They are a reflection of how much we love in the world. And right now we ain't loving people right when we look at homelessness in our community. So just be redirecting that messaging when you're hearing it in the circles you're in.
Thank you so much.
And I'll just say the flip side of that coin, and speaking politically, we must not fall into the false binary of safety versus justice. That is the greatest fallacy, I think, that progressives run the risk of falling into. Our agenda cannot be about, we need to do less of this or less of that, or minimize this or minimize that. Our agenda has to be about more of a response. These are serious problems. The struggles of small businesses with public disorder are real. We don't need to minimize that. We don't need to diminish that. We need to tap into the energy behind that and be like, and that is why we need to take an orders of magnitude more serious approach to these problems than we have taken in the past. The people, the problems, and our communities deserve that. And so, safety and transformation are the same agenda. So, and hopefully the King County Democrats agenda. Thank you all so much for having us.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you for being here. We just want to say thank you again. We will pass your information, and we will be in touch. You will hear from us. This is an amazing education. We want to advocate, and I just thank you for being a part of this tonight. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was an amazing guest speaker. I'm going to pause for 1 second and ask our tally if we do have results from our endorsement vote.
Yes, we do. It passes with 100%, 38 votes.
Woo! Congratulations. We now have our April special election levy for the Crisis Care Center endorsed. I'm going to take a quick plug before we move on to our Budget and Finance Committee. But I do want to say, everyone who's going back to your legislative district to say, what did we do? What are we doing? We are now going to advocate and activate to get the word out to vote for this levy. I did put information in the call to meeting, but you will be getting information. Let's make our voices heard. Let's make sure that people understand that there is a ballot measure in April. So you will be hearing a lot from me. Please include that. And with that, I will turn it over to our Budget and Finance Committee to give a few words. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie. And I am sharing my screen. Okay, so I will not be nearly as interesting as the folks we just listened to. However, the work that we do on some of the stuff that's not as sexy supports our ability to support folks like that. So with that, I want to thank our Finance Committee members, Finance Committee Chair Tara Gallagher, and members Eric Valpy, Rachel Ludwig, Hunter Brown, Katie Ozog, and John Comerford. Our real goal is to provide an adaptable, responsible budget that sets KCD up for success. Just a couple of abbreviations that you'll see in the documents that we go through. KCD is us. KCE is King County Elections. LD Legislative District. LPO is a local party organization, and that's basically an LD party organization and a county party organization. We have a lot of them in our state. PDC is our campaign finance organization. FEC governs federal elections. PCOs are precinct committee officers that serve as the base of our party. And SPDs, or special purpose districts, are fire, water, sewer, stormwater, utility districts, mosquito abatement districts, which we also have. But anyway, just to not throw too much jargon for folks coming in. We have in our budget something we call an operational reserve. This got put in place after we ran out of money. We don't want to do that again. And so we have payments we're contractually obligated to make, and we want to make sure we always have sufficient funds. It requires 3 months of operational reserves so that if at some point we were within 3 months of running out of money, that we would make adjustments to how we spend. And then a vote of this board would be required to dip into the operational reserve. I am pleased to say that since implementing the operational reserve, we have never operated within it. So we've never had to dip into it, and I would like to keep it that way. We have a milestone-based budget, so it's all well and good to set a budget, but if you don't raise the money to cover it, it's not a very useful budget. So we have fundraising milestones that that allow us to move from one budget to another, and then the operational reserve serves as a backstop to make sure we have cash flow. We have operational milestones around, especially around hiring staff, so that when we do it responsibly. We pay a stipend to our chair. Our chair spends at least 10 to 20 hours a week. Probably sometimes it feels a lot more, Carrie. And in our last term, or maybe the term before, we put in a stipend for our chair. And this is important both in terms of today as well as looking forward. If we want to be a party that's focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're going to ask somebody to do 10, 20 or more hours a week. It's really important that if we want this role to be accessible to people, that we make sure that people are compensated for that. Why would we hire staff? We are one of the largest Democratic counties in the entire country. We deliver a lot of votes. If we want to pass progressive policy at the state level, if you think about some of the state initiatives that we've won and some of them that we've lost, that a lot of us put a lot of our heart and soul into, those votes run straight through King County. And if we had delivered more votes, we might have been able to pass, for instance, the I-1000 to put the ability to have equity in education and state spending back. So it's things like that that it takes a lot of work to sustain organizing volunteers across a 17 legislative district and 1.3 million voters. So that's why we would look at hiring staff, getting ready to hire staff. I'm really committed to this, that we need an HR committee. And so we wrote this into our policies. You can read more about it. This is a lot of words on a screen. I'll share a bunch of documents later, but just wanted to give you some of the high level before we dive into the numbers. So our goal really is to have oversight with checks and balances. Committee chairs have some basic authorization. The county chair is able to spend up to 1,000, and then over that, it comes to the finance committee to just review and approve and ask responsible questions. Special projects, I will explain this if this comes up, but we don't have any this year. Candidate contributions, we have specific bylaws that govern our candidate contributions. Again, our current budget does not have that, so I will come back and address it if we move into a budget where we will be doing that. All expenditure categories are a single budget line item. And then we spend out of those budget items. And that is my really quick overview. We have a document that is the standing rules. This was included in Carrie's email that went out. If you want to join the finance committee and help us work on these standing rules, we would love to have it. If you're looking for finance rules to implement in your LD, some of these might make sense for you. Some of them are really make more sense in a organization like ours, which is representatives from other organizations. So, but you're welcome to take a look at that. We did not recommend any changes. So these are the exact same standing rules that were adopted last year and the year before that. And then lastly, the moment you've all been waiting for, our budget. So we didn't make
Melissa,
it.
I don't mean to interrupt. Could you expand that screen so we can see it?
Yes. Thank you for interrupting because I want you to be able to see this. Okay. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger there too. So we didn't change too much about the budget. The big difference is last year we had talked about hiring interns. We didn't end up being able to do that. And we took that budget and repurposed it into this staff level. So that's the big, for those of you who remember the budget from last year, because I know that that's exactly what you all store in your brains. Yeah, even I don't quite do that, but this is pretty similar to last year with that exception. So just really quickly, fundraising, we generally have to spend money to make money, whether that is on consulting or it's a venue rental and food. In order to raise nearly $120,000, we expect to spend about $12,000 on that fundraising. Compliance is what keeps us out of trouble with the PDC. So we pay somebody to do our filings with the PDC. Infrastructure is this Zoom, all of our online tools that allow the PCO application to work. Basically everything that supports the organization in functioning. We have not historically spent on data privacy and security and website design, but those are things that we want to do this year. Outreach, this can be things like the Pride Parade, which I hope you all will join us for this year. These are both chair stipends and then also stipends for our committee members who have to travel around the state for the state committee meetings, leadership development, candidate support. And this is not support of specific candidates. This is support of recruitment, training, canvassing, text banking. So not candidate specific, but things that we're doing to support our endorsed candidates generally. Benson meetings, committee support, accessibility, staff, and then we may have a county convention next year, which we haven't had during the pandemic. So we put some money in to start that planning work. We are not voting on this today. So there is time for you to read through the documents, email the finance committee and ask questions, and then we'll be voting on this at the next meeting. But I wanted to give you a high-level overview so you have time to ask me any questions. It doesn't need to be tonight because I know we have still a fair amount left on the agenda. So as I said, we still have time, but our bylaws say that I need to deliver a budget by March 1st, and this is me delivering the budget. I'm proposing it, and then we'll work on adopting it next time.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. I was going to say fabulous. Thank you so much. That was really thorough and educational, and we appreciate you. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have committee reports, and the committee that we have stood up and has been doing yeoman's work is our endorsement committee. And with that, I am going to introduce Martin Cheney, who has been wearing a million hats with subcommittees, running this, our endorsement committee. And I know a lot of you here are on the endorsement committee or at least have familiarity with this committee. And I will turn it over to Martin to give an update of where we are at.
Awesome. There we go. I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Okay. So the endorsement committee has been working hard for the last month we had 6 full committee meetings in February and many more subcommittee meetings. I'm pleased to report that we've met our March 1st deadline for submission of draft candidate questionnaires to the KCDCC Executive Board, and these questionnaires are available to you in the shared KCDCC Google Drive. We have a total of 7 sets of questions, shared candidates, questions for all candidates, judicial candidate questions, municipal candidate questions, countywide candidate questions, port candidate questions, school board candidate questions, and finally, a Seattle candidate municipal addendum. The committee worked hard to limit the number of questions and was reluctant to have a Seattle addendum, but we are doing so with the understanding that none of the Seattle LDs will feel a need to have their own LD-specific additional questionnaire. So we think this is a win in terms of limiting the amount of work that we ask our candidates to do for us. I'd like to talk a little bit about the work going forward and what you should expect. We are on track to have the KCDCC Executive Board give final approval to the questionnaires at next month's March 28th meeting. Now, to meet this deadline, notice of any proposed amendments to the draft questionnaires, that is, additional questions, modified questions, or question deletions, need to be submitted in time for the March 18th call to meeting, which means that any proposed changes will need to be submitted by March 17th midnight at the very latest. I want to emphasize that the questionnaires should be treated as highly confidential at this time, and access should be limited to people with a clear need to know, and definitely not to any candidates or campaigns, because it's subject, the questionnaires are fully subject to change at this time, and it would be grossly unfair to any candidate or campaign to ask them to start working on completing them. Then once the questionnaires are finalized, an online submission version will be available on our website, and candidates who submit questionnaires will be subsequently contacted to schedule interviews. We've currently scheduled some Saturday and Sunday dates in April for interviews. We anticipate that the schedule in May and June will be much more intense, with interviews most Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So please mark your calendars. And I want to finish by saying that the endorsements committee is a huge undertaking, and I accepted the job with the understanding that I would need lots of help. And I'm pleased to be able to say that I've been receiving that help. And at the risk of omitting some key contributors, I'd like to give a shout out to Melissa Taylor, Kat Pipkin, Jeremy Barksdale, Margaret Moore, Rosemary Sutton, Andrea Ornelas, Christina Beverlin, Carrie Barnes, and especially to Beth Baisley, without whose huge amount of work on the subcommittee for drafting the questionnaires, I'm doubtful that we would have met this March 1st deadline. And so with that, if there are any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them.
So we will take a couple questions if you have them. Use your raised hand. We will also put contact information in chat for being able to answer those. But Martin, I want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you for all you do and leading this huge effort. Thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm really amazed at the number of people that show up for all of those multitudinous meetings that we have, and people who are on the endorsement committee, even if they haven't been able to show up at the meetings. We are still recruiting for a few districts. So if your district does not have its allocation of a delegate and up to 3 alternates, there's still more room on the committee. Lots of room in Zoom meetings.
Lots of room. So please, we will take it all. Thank you so much, Martin. Appreciate you. Next, we want to hear from our PCO Recruitment and Development Committee Chair, Alexander Erickson, who has been so busy, and I will turn it over to him to give an update of what's been going on the last month.
Yeah, hi. So we meet once a month, and we had our second successful meeting. All but 3 of the expected LDs attended, which is great. So we are able to get information out to everyone quickly and effectively through these meetings. We're proceeding with our PCO training events. We've been able to have our PCO welcome event in early February, which was a huge success. We had over 100 PCOs come to that. And that was a great way for us to help train PCOs and let them know what their role is, and empower them to really make an impact in their LDs so that you guys hopefully have more PCOs showing up to your meetings and knowing what's going on. Last weekend, this past weekend, we had a voter registration training, which went really well. And upcoming this weekend, we have a minivan training. So hopefully that will go well. And we're going to continue to get feedback from this committee on what kinds of trainings the PCOs need, and also what trainings we should repeat so that people who couldn't make it to the previous ones are able to get the full information and get their questions answered at future meetings. Right now, what we've been having a lot of good discussions around is about who we target and how we target. One of the big things that this committee's role is to make sure that when there are new PCO chairs in each of the LDs, that the information transfer is good and thorough. And so what we spent a lot of our last meeting on is learning Vote Builder and learning how to use Vote Builder to create walk lists, phone lists, how to target, who to target, that sort of thing. And that's really useful for every single LD because we've had LDs, including this time, who have had rough transitions, sometimes through no fault of their own, where that knowledge just isn't getting passed on as well as it should be. And this committee has provided an amazing space for people to come, get their questions answered, and also find a community of people to ping ideas off of so that we're figuring out what works in different places. And we're able to pull the best ideas from all over the county to make all of King County work better. My goals for the upcoming month, what I want to do is obviously I want to have a great minivan training. I want to have a great meeting, but I also want to start working on doing one-on-ones with the PCO chairs from each of the LDs and calling a meeting of our extra volunteers who have done amazing work so that I can get to know them because I am still taking over things from Anne, and Anne has been super helpful with that transition. And so obviously my third goal is to continue transitioning and organizing myself into this role so that I can be an effective leader and point of answers for everyone who wants to ask questions. My long-term goals are to increase recruitment of PCOs in the lead up to November 2023 and 24. 2024, which is a presidential cycle, should mark a high point for our PCOs numbers. And so if we can have a large number of PCOs and retain that, hopefully that will put us in a better position cycle over cycle so that we can continue to grow in King County. Another goal of mine is to expand the neighborhood teams ideas, which we currently have in place in the 36th PCO or 36th LD, and which is also the model that the coordinated campaign uses. So expanding that idea into legislative districts where it makes sense so that some of these PCO chairs don't have to do as much work. And also I hope that it will create better retention for PCOs because it will create community in the neighborhoods that they're canvassing. Another big important piece for me is drafting and providing county-wide materials for improved multilingual access. There are a lot of great materials from King County, but there are some materials that our PCOs are requesting specifically to allow them to start conversations and have conversations with people where English isn't their first language, especially when we're doing voter outreach for registration. It's super important to be able to understand people and understand what language they're using, because we might not be able to discern the difference between two similar dialects or two similar languages. And so being able to identify the language is super important for our PCOs. And so we're going to work on some resources to help them with language identification and outreach for those communities. I'd like to partner with the outreach committee to improve our outreach and recruitment for diverse PCOs, making sure that we're finding people in those communities who represent those communities, who are from those communities, and who have roots in those communities, so that when we're doing the multilingual outreach or outreach to voters that are harder to get to, we have better strategies for approaching them. And finally, I want to work with our volunteers to improve our county's data gathering and targeting abilities. Obviously, there's a lot of goals, and some of them aren't going to be fully completed by 2024. Some of them are just going to be getting started, but that's kind of my agenda moving forward, is to continue providing these trainings, increasing recruitment, increasing retention, expanding neighborhood teams, improving multilingual access, and improving outreach and data. So yeah, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to let me know.
So if you have a question, please use your raised hand and we will, I will recognize you. And while we're waiting for some raised hands, I really want to emphasize the importance of our PCO recruitment and development committee. Please go back and say, are you a PCO? Let's get involved. Please come to a meeting. Please, if you here need a minivan training, come this Saturday at 10 o'clock. It is the more the merrier. The more that we are all together, you will find somebody who's doing something different, collaboration, partnership. This is really the committee where our organizers and where we consider our field organizing body through Alex. Please go back to your LDs, please yourself, and make sure that everyone knows how to engage, who to engage, recruit. This is, we so appreciate, Alex, your effort, and I just want to say thank you. We will continue to support you. Let us know what you need, and we will go from there. Melissa, I see your hand raised.
This is a slightly different topic. We're reverting back. I had a member, and I am so grateful for it, ask how to contribute to King County Democrats' work. And so I am putting a link in the chat. So anybody here who is able to support us, especially on a monthly basis, it really helps with planning out what we can fund and support throughout the year. So links in the chat, KCD Progress Fund. Please help us make all of this work come to fruition.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. Please take a look at this link. I would say share it with your friends and family. We need everyone's investment and support to make this work happen. And so thank you. Next on our agenda, I'm going to be very brief before we move to good of the order. And that is that we've been talking about running for office. The office is up for election 311. We will continue to talk about that. We will be sending out to all legislative districts a spreadsheet of, hey, here's everyone in your jurisdiction who is an incumbent. Who have you talked to? Who do you, what, I'm sorry, what offices, I'm getting a little frazzled, what offices that you do not have a candidate for, let's work together. So part of what our mission is to make sure we have a Democrat, I will say this again and again, running in every single race. So our contest every race, fill every seat is coming up. That will be a huge emphasis for March. So at our next March meeting, we will have data, engagement, and more information around that, but that is coming. And so with that, I will move to good of the order. If you have something to share for good of the order, please use your raised hand and I will call on you and we will go from there. Mary.
Sorry, this is not actually good of the order. I wanted to add, it's a follow-up on what you were just talking about with the contest every race.
Got it.
I noticed in your agenda, you said that like feedback would be due by end of March. And then you said we would get more information about it at the March meeting, which I think is going to be relatively late into the month. So I just wanted to understand, like, if we would expect to get, I don't know what it's going to look like, how many gaps there's going to be, like what work there's going to be for us to do.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to get a sense
You will
of
have,
absolutely.
so you will get the list the first week in March, to be able to look through it, to analyze it, to say what seats don't we have, what seats are we set for. King County election will give us our jurisdiction overlay the first week in March. The second we get those, all chairs, all endorsement committees, everybody, all 17 districts will be getting what we get. We will add incumbency and we will add as much information as we can so that you have a document to then work with throughout the month of March. So the more information is, you will be getting that. We just haven't seen it from King County elections, but we're doing all the pre-work that you can then take to your LD. So we're not asking you to, I just remember 2 years ago, it wasn't as concise. It was a little bit more fluid. So we're just trying to firm that up, and that we're asking in agreement by the end of March, can you please take a look and let us know what direction we're going on candidates?
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I hope that adds clarity. I appreciate that. And we do we have any good of the order? Any good of the order? Any good of the order? I'm not hearing any, but you know where to find us. You know how to get in touch with us. We absolutely appreciate everybody here. And Melissa Taylor, I see your hand raised.
I feel like I'm monopolizing the microphone, but I did want to say that a couple of us were chatting on the side about possibly trying to get together to make food for Dominic Davis's team and the folks they serve. So if anybody is interested and wants to get together to do like prepping of food or delivery of food, if you can send me an email and I'll drop my email in the chat. I think volunteering together on things that are adjacent to our political work would also be lovely, and a lovely way for us to support the excellent work that they're doing.
Thank you so much. And Melissa will put the information in chat. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Thank you, everyone. I just appreciate all of you. We will send out a follow-up email with links. Please reach out. Any questions? I just appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you, everybody. Hi. Hey, I think we're going to stop recording.